Doesn't have to be exactly, but oh yeah, that is the right word. I said it wrong before, didn't I? If you want to have a little taste, ooh, look. Welcome back, everybody, to. I can't remember what it's.
It's Kay's Classic Bakes.
Oh my word! Things might go awry now. Oh, it's strong. But yeah, I'm going to break my egg over here. Just working out which way around I'm doing it. So meringue, egg white into here, and I'm just going to pop the yolk into it.
My gran, you would sit down to watch a film with my gran. She'd fall asleep through it all, and then she'd wake up and she'd go, well, I couldn't follow that.
It's not really thick. I'd say that is. I'm not very good with centimetres. That sounds silly, but I think that is about half a centimetre. Yeah, this is way too big. I've cut the circles way too big, but that doesn't matter.
Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring Kay's Classic Bakes.
Oh my goodness.
For the first time since 2022,
yes,
there's a brand new series of wonderful baking shows.
Yes.
Now that's exciting.
Back in the kitchen, everybody.
Now 2022.
It's a good one.
It's always a good one.
It's always a good one.
Otherwise it wouldn't be here.
That's true.
2022, it was, of course, Kay's Cozy Kitchen. Kay's Cozy Kitchen, a hugely popular series because we were sharing all of our sort of new ways of making the stuff that we love. Yeah. So that it was like easy for us to eat and everything was lovely.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted to say, Kay's Classic Bakes, sort of similar, because there's all the twists, because we can only eat certain things anyway in certain ways, so there's all the twists that you would always put on so that we were able to eat it.
Yes.
But what's so exciting is it's all sort of elegant and fancy.
A little bit fancy. Well, as fancy as
here we go.
I can get, sorry.
Honestly, like, so exciting.
Yeah.
When Kay was sort of planning this series, and also the same with the Yarny Book Club, we were like, we've got to change the way that we produce these shows to make them more like studio quality, so they look like what you see on the telly. So
on the telly,
we tried it out at Christmas with the multi-camera shoots. Never done anything quite like this before, but my goodness, it's so much fun, and it really just makes it look as good as it tastes. I like that.
Right.
It's good. Oh my goodness, it's like beyond. It's beyond stupendous what's coming of it. It's so great. Oh, look, I'm not going to say too much because
it's very yummy.
I need to thank all of you so much for your feedback. You love the Yarny Book Club.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Thank you all so much.
What a wonderful show. And do you know what? Kay was just finishing off the section of the reading corner, Cal. I'm like, that's so great, you should show it. She's like, I showed it last time. And I'm like...
Just shows you how much attention he pays, doesn't it?
No, I kept saying to her, it's because it looks so pretty. But
it does. I was just finishing off the contrast stripe ready for the next colour.
Yarny Book Club, delighted to tell you, it's actually back next episode.
Yes.
We've postponed the start of England, a castle nation. I don't know why I always say it like that.
Because it's fun.
England, a castle nation. Postponed the start of the series just by one episode, just so that it's a big production, this one. And just to sort of get all the ducks in a row, we were like, we could have done it. We could have got it out next show, but we spoke with a high-powered meeting, and we agreed that there was no point rushing. Let's do it right.
Yeah.
And actually... last year, the Rise for All the Monasteries started around the same date that England the Castle Nation started. And I think it actually helps with the weather.
It also helps with the weather. It's super, super cold.
A bit chilly, isn't it?
Not as cold as like Buffalo, New York.
No. We take it all back.
Or Detroit, Michigan. No, not as cold as you've all had it over there. My goodness, it's been cold.
There's -9 this morning when I went out. And it sort of takes your breath away.
It does. That's -9 degrees C. Yeah, I mean, it's super, super cold. For us here, that's really cold.
Yeah, it really is. Now, look, I think we just need to take a moment to talk about hairstyles. Look.
Did some of you notice something last time?
Well, I don't think as many people noticed as you thought we were going to notice.
Right.
But, look, I made a
No, we both messed up. We both messed up.
No. You know what Christmas is like? Christmas is crazy busy for us anyway because of the way that we produce stuff. To be honest, this sort of period of time through Christmas, to be honest, it's always busy.
It's always busy.
Something going on. But I think it's when you add that additional Christmas pressure, which we all feel, don't we, at Christmas time. I spoke about this a little bit in our last radio show. I don't know why, but the best hairdresser I've ever had is sat right here. She's marvellous.
Yes.
And every time I pass her the clippers. Well, I passed her the wrong clippers.
We've got 2 sets of clippers. Yeah.
So I passed her the wrong ones.
He handed me the wrong ones. He handed me the ones... Well, anyway,
what was I doing?
And
I'm telling you, it was a fog. It was Christmas fog. It was.
Yeah, absolutely. And because with the other clippers, I used those to just quickly whip over the top to keep it at the right length on the top. And then I used the one that gradiates down. So Dan passed me the other set and it was set to a number 1, a grade 1. And I didn't notice this. And I just went zoom like this. Well, I honestly could not speak for like 5 minutes. I was just like, and Dan was just sat there going, "Oh no!" And
no,
you were laughing.
I wasn't. I didn't think at any point did I say, "Oh no." I just laughed.
He was just laughing, and I said, "You are not going to laugh when you see what's happened." And then I was like, "How has that happened?" And I looked at the clippers, and I'm like, "It's the wrong clippers," and they were set to a grade 1. So yeah, Dan had this stripe of bare head.
You see.
Down here.
See, I thought
this was right before Christmas.
If I'd had one on both sides, it could have been like a reverse mohawk.
It could have been, couldn't it?
I mean, there was part of me that liked it.
I suppose it's lucky I didn't go straight down the middle.
Oh no!
That would have been like complete disaster.
To be honest, I think we'd have had to have taken it all down to the same level.
Well, number 1 is bald.
Bold.
He was bald, as Bryony used to say. He was totally bald. Here, there was a stripe. Now, on the last show, I said to him, "Look, it's all right, you don't need to mention it, but don't look down." And, of course, he did. When he was knitting, he was like this. And I saw it, and I'm like,
The other thing was, in everyday life, it really wasn't that noticeable. So we weren't really sure how noticeable it would be on camera.
It was initially...
But this was weeks later.
It was 2 weeks after I'd done it. We were like, "Oh, don't worry, we're not filming for 2 weeks. It will have grown enough by then," and it really hadn't. And I've cut it twice since to just try and...
Oh, it's all right now.
It's not too bad now. You can still see it, but...
Hardly. There's probably...
Honestly...
3 weeks growth between that and the other. I reckon.
I was just like, and Dan was like, "Don't worry, I'm not bothered, it's only hair, it'll grow back." And I was like, "Oh, you've got to see it." Well, Bryony had a good giggle when she got home from school that day.
I think when you've had the perspective of having chemotherapy.
With no hair. I know, yeah, it was true enough.
Having a stripe down your head really is not that
true
much
enough. It was a conversation point over Christmas anyway.
It certainly was. It certainly was a conversation point. What was so funny was I have a very, as you probably know, long-term listeners will know, I have a slightly interesting sense of humour. And we were watching, I love to watch a channel on YouTube called Fail Army.
Oh, it's terrible. I can't watch it. I can't watch these poor people falling over and like doing tragic things. I just can't.
There's a lot of karma in it though as well, because sometimes you'll get like, really clever weightlifters like
showing off,
and then like something will go.
Yeah, nobody obviously really hurts themselves.
No, I don't think they're allowed to put
it wouldn't be on there, would it? No.
Anyway, this particular clip, just on Saturday, this lady was clearly cutting her husband's hair or boyfriend's hair, and she'd just done one
little patch
right there.
She'd done the same thing, but just one patch at the back of the head, and I said,
and that made it onto Fail Army.
I wish I'd done that. I should have been filming myself doing that, because honestly,
the thing is though, I don't think Fail Army. It's not like you've been framed where they pay you.
I'm not bothered about that. No, and I wouldn't have been filming myself anyway.
No, cutting hair.
That would have been weird, wouldn't it? No.
It was highly amusing.
Yeah, it is now, looking back. I was not,
It was
honestly.
then.
I was absolutely devastated that I'd done that to you.
I was laughing from day one.
You were laughing, I know.
Perfect way to start the year this year. We've been going through all the classic romantic comedies.
Oh, yeah, we have.
We've been watching them all. So, When Harry Met Sally,
Yeah.
and Sleepless in Seattle,
Yeah.
and You've Got Mail, and
Shop Around the Corner.
Shop Around the Corner. Did we watch anything else? No, I don't think so.
No, we started watching.
No, yeah, don't worry about that. I was thinking more about When Harry Met Sally. Oh no, we did. We watched. Oh, you're terrible.
Oh, Four Weddings.
Four Weddings, a Funeral, and we also watched Notting Hill.
Yes.
And for me,
Notting Hill's the better film out of those two.
definitely, I actually enjoyed the most, I think, When Harry Met Sally.
Right.
I really like You've Got Mail,
Yes.
but we spoke about this. It was, I think, because You've Got Mail's got so much early internet references, because that's obviously the point of the film.
It dates it, doesn't it?
It really does date it. Not that that matters.
No.
But then it was weird then watching The Shop Around the Corner. I didn't watch The Shop Around the Corner and look at that in a dated way.
No, me
Which is
neither.
weird because
Me
it's from the
neither.
40s.
Yeah.
I think it's because we can remember the early
internet.
days of the internet.
Yeah.
So that makes us look at it. And also the fashions, we can probably remember the fashions.
Yes,
and
of course.
looking at a 40s film, it's so strange, isn't it? Watching a 40s film, essentially the same sort of film, but actually the more modern one feels more dated than the other one.
Yeah.
The reason why I enjoyed, though, When Harry Met Sally so much is I just think that Billy Crystal is brilliant.
He
and
is
I think
brilliant,
that
yeah.
the way he acts oh my goodness, I'm in love with it. And that realisation, and then there's so many elements of it which are like totally out of character from what he normally would have done.
Yes.
And so that makes it more, I don't know, it just sucked me in a lot more.
And I think they do have good chemistry as well, Meg Ryan and...
Absolutely
I think, and
brilliant.
Dan was right, actually. I do think Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, I think the chemistry was better than Tom Hanks
Yes.
and Meg Ryan,
Yes.
somehow. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, it feels a bit more like friendship
Yes.
than romance,
Yes.
somehow.
It's the scenes in When Harry Met Sally where they're talking on the phone and they're watching films together, and it's like
They had a real connection.
oh my goodness,
They had a real connection. Yeah.
And I think what makes that film so sort of lovely and special is you can see a mile off they're not just friends.
Yeah.
And it must have been like, I'm talking as if it's real. But I think we've all been in situations like that before where we've probably known people who've had a connection.
Yeah.
Anyone who knew both of us before we got together probably realised they probably have a bit more of a connection than just friendship.
Maybe. I don't know how people would have viewed us.
Probably in a similar way to When Harry Met Sally.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But Kate referenced our sort of... It ground to a halt when we got to the Philadelphia story.
Yeah.
Started watching the Philadelphia story with Cary Grant, James Stewart, Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah.
And the dialogue is so sort of fast and furious.
Yeah.
And it's also, a bit
I didn't know
madcap.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand the storyline.
Well, at that time of night, things have to be simple because you're quite sleepy.
Yeah, but I've managed every other film.
Yeah, they're all fairly simple storylines.
Maybe, yeah.
I think if you'd been watching that on an afternoon, you'd have probably got it.
Maybe so.
But I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
You know, it took me a certain amount of concentration to get it. So we had to give up watching the Philadelphia
We gave up watching the Philadelphia story, yeah, which is a shame
fun.
because the actors in that and actresses are brilliant.
It was all well acted, and it was sort of fun looking at that sort of 40s vibe.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, Katharine Hepburn's brilliant, but I'll be honest, I'm not a massive fan of her. I don't know why.
That's such a contradiction.
I know,
She's
it kind
brilliant,
of is,
but I'm
isn't
not
it?
a massive fan.
Just thinking about...
I get Katharine Hepburn and Audrey Hepburn mixed up.
Yes, two different people. But,
Audrey Hepburn is brilliant.
You see, I much prefer Deborah Carr.
Yeah.
I think she's brilliant.
Yeah.
So maybe it is, with Katharine Hepburn, maybe it is that kind of more sort of madcap.
Yeah.
Because she is a bit bonkers in that film, isn't she? She comes
Yes.
across a bit crazy.
But they're putting it on.
Right.
Because they've got...
See, this is what I just didn't get what was going on.
It reminds me of my gran when we used to.
Why is he back at her house when they're divorced? I think.
Yeah.
I think.
We're getting into the sort of details of the film now, but my gran, you would sit down to watch a film with my gran. She'd fall asleep through it all, and then she'd wake up and she'd go, "Well, I couldn't follow that." And it's sort of similar with you because
like me,
you're sort of dropping off as you're watching the film.
That's true.
But for me, I think definitely When Harry Met Sally was the best. For you, I'm guessing it's probably You've Got Mail.
I'd have to give it some deep thought.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm actually shocked because I thought you would just say You've Got Mail straight off.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I do love that film. I'd have to really ponder on that.
It's been a lovely way to start the year anyway. Neil, look, before we get into what's on your needles, thank you all so much for getting involved with our not who's going to cast on the most, but what are we going to cast on through the course of this year?
How many, yeah.
I've got to say, slightly offended by some people's guesses for me. I think a couple of people said 5.
5? Give him a bit of credit.
It's a bit harsh. But put it this way, folks, you've motivated me.
Yes.
So please do continue to play along. And if you see, whenever we cast something new on, something appearing in the top corner and it says a number, you now know the reason why. That's the number of new cast-ons that we've had this year.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be interesting to see
it is,
at the end of the year how many we've had. So look, speaking of new cast-ons, I think it's high time that I said, Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
So, the first thing that's on my needles is a new cast-on, and this is a pair of fingerless mitts. Now, this project came about for a couple of reasons, actually. Maybe 3 reasons. One, I had Dan's leftovers from the socks that he just knit for me, the Whispers in the Wall socks. I had the leftovers which I wanted to use. This is after all this time, that I dyed up, a Snape colourway, and I really wanted to use it. I didn't have enough for a pair of socks, so I thought, right, okay, maybe I'll do some mitts with it. That'd be nice.
How many grams did you have? Did you weigh it?
Maybe 40, something like that. But then I also had some other leftovers from Dan. This is nice, isn't it? From another pair of socks that he knit for Bryony that he finished and we showed last time, I think. The sort of pink, purpley ones, the cable and twist, the ones that I designed for Dan. And I had this smaller amount of leftovers. I think I probably had maybe 25, 30 grams of this. And the two of them together, I thought, oh, they're rather lovely, aren't they? I wonder if I could do something with those together. And then I thought, well, at the moment, I'm going through this process at the moment of trying to finesse the thumb pickup, on the thumb gusset on fingerless mitts. So I thought, oh, maybe I could work with these two together. And then I remembered that when I designed the Nutcracker socks, which were the Advent calendar design from Christmas Just Gone, I did sections of 2-row stripes and really loved doing it. So I thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 2-row stripe fingerless mitts using these 2 colours. And I've finished one mitt and I've got the other one on the go. So I'll put this on my hand and I'll show you. I absolutely love how these are working out, and it's just been so fun to knit them. So I'll pop it on my hand. So here we go. Oh, aren't they lovely? They look like witches' mitts, don't they? They're a bit like witches' stockings with the 2 colours. And I'll show you the thumb in a bit closer detail in a second. So I had more of the sort of black colour. So I've used that for the cuffs and then striped through with the pink. Pink or purple? I'm not sure. It's more pink, isn't it, than purple, I would say. Sort of like a violet colour. So, and the other thing I did differently as well with these mitts was I've used a different increase. Traditionally, fingerless mitts are done with like make one lefts, make one rights, aren't they? I mean, generally when you're knitting a thumb gusset, that's what you would do. And when I've designed fingerless mitts in the past, I've also done that. I thought it might be fun to see if I could work out a neat way of using a knit front back instead, just a knit front back on both sides, and just to see how that would look. And I worked it out so that the knit front backs will lie in a way that doesn't interfere with the 2-row stripes. That was quite tricky, working out the maths and getting enough increases in and things like that. But, I think it worked out. Super neat. You can see there. And on the other side. Honestly, I'm not even sure that I will do make one lefts and rights anymore on fingerless mitts, because I find this so much easier. You don't have to take that minute to think. Is it a left? Is it a right? How do you do a left? How do you do a right? It might only be a couple of seconds each time, but that adds up, doesn't it? And doing it this way, using knit front backs, don't have to think at all, because I know that that's all I'm doing. I haven't totally cracked the picking up quite yet, but I'm nearly there. It is really neat. It's difficult to show, but if I show you the kind of inside of the thumb, I don't know how much you can see there, but it is super neat. And I didn't have any gaps to close up. That's my aim, really, that I don't have any gaps to sew up, because that's the thing that I don't really like. I'm like, I always think I can do better. And I didn't have any gaps, but I just think it can be a little bit neater, so I'm still working on that. But overall, I think it's so pretty. And Bryony's obviously claimed these because she thinks they're like witches' mitts. But I'll show you the edge where I've been changing yarns. So you do get a jog, obviously, because I'm not doing anything to correct that jog, because it's only 2 rows. And I found when I went through the process for designing the Nutcracker socks, I found that if I tried to correct the jog with only 2 round stripes, it actually looked worse than not doing anything. But also, because these are mitts, the changeover is on the edge of your hand, so you just don't notice it. So I'll show you the inside as well, so you can see my sort of floats, because I found a method that really works. And I included videos within the advent calendar when I was doing it for the Nutcracker socks on how I alternate the 2 yarns. And I do it in a way that it just makes the whole thing kind of really fun for me, which is why I wanted to do it again. So here are my sort of floats going up the inside. And there's no pulling. There's no kind of, it's not too tight down here. These haven't been blocked either. They're straight off the needles. And, there's plenty of give. It's just been a really fun process. When I'm knitting, I've realised that I kind of always want to do something a little bit new, or learn something, or, use a different approach or something that makes it really interesting for me. I don't really generally like just doing something that I've done 10 times before. I much prefer to just try and tweak something, or, whatever. So yeah, that's one mitt done, and then I've done the cuff on the other one. And the other thing, actually, that I didn't mention that I've been doing that's been brilliant with these is I find that with a 2x2 rib, I've done 2x2 on these cuffs, and I find that if I don't pay attention when I'm doing a 2x2 rib, that one of my knit stitches, the second knit stitch of the knit 2, I find can look looser. And there's an easy way of correcting that. It's all to do with the amount of yarn that is created when you move from a knit to a purl. So moving from a purl to a knit, it's not a problem. It doesn't create this issue. But when you move from a knit to a purl, you're bringing the yarn from the back to the front. And although that might not seem like quite a lot of yarn, if you don't give your yarn a little tug to close up that bit of yarn, that extra bit of yarn, then that goes into that knit stitch and creates a loose stitch. So I find that if I just am aware of that, then, and as I work my purl stitch, this depends whether you're a continental or a English style knitter as to how you tighten up that stitch, but I'm an English knitter, so we know when I bring my yarn forward before I work the purl stitch, I just give it a little tug just to pull that yarn forward and to avoid having that little bit of extra yarn. And I find that now my knit to purl to is really neat. So if I show you up close, you see how lovely and neat that is? And that's because I'm paying attention to that changeover. So if you have that issue, then it could be that it's the same situation that I was having. And I just find if you're aware of it and you just pay that little bit of attention when you're changing over, because it's very easy, isn't it, when you're working rib, just to go into that zone and not really be aware of your yarn tension so much. So it's worked perfectly for me, and it just having such a neat rib, it's really satisfying, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm working these on 2.5mm. I tend to do all my fingerless mitts on 2.5mm because it just produces a really nice gauge. And yeah, it's not taking very long. I don't know how much this weighs, but I can't imagine that I will use more than 40 grams for the pair. So it's a great stash buster. In fact, I think I did weigh it, and I think it'll be over 20 grams of the black, but I think it'll be within 20 grams for the pink. But I'll tell you when I've finished the pair exactly how much it was. But very much enjoying those.
So that's a new cast on.
Yes, it is.
Amazing. What we will have seen earlier.
Yes, I know.
I will. Oh, no. Don't say, yes, I know.
What?
Because I was still, thrilled for your new cast on.
Yes.
And even more thrilled that you've got like a whole mitt.
I know.
When did you cast these on?
Oh, I don't know.
A while ago.
But it can't be a while ago, can it? Because it's after the last show.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it? Oh, my goodness.
Well, yeah, of course. Otherwise it wouldn't be a new cast on, would it?
Well, no, it could be. Because you could have cast it on like 4 weeks ago, but just not shown it.
Not shown it. No. Maybe, I don't know, 10 days ago, something like that. No more than that.
Gosh.
Quick, they're super quick. It's a tiny little mitt, isn't it, really? But, the changing of the yarns, it honestly doesn't really slow me down because it takes a second to switch them over. The way that I do it, it honestly really doesn't slow me down. It was a bit slower working it on the thumb because I did switch, I did do a bit of striping on the thumb as well, but it wasn't really a problem. So, you have a few ends. It wasn't mad with ends because you're not cutting, obviously. You're just floating all the way up the mitt here. There was no ends. Yeah, lovely little project.
And that pink one?
Yes.
What was that dyed for?
It went with this.
Oh.
I did them together, so that was after all this time, and that was always.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I knitted it in the 2 separate colourways.
Yes.
2 separate projects.
Yes.
Which then created
2 leftovers.
2 perfect leftovers.
Leftovers are my favourite things. I love leftovers. Yeah.
Well, that's really good.
Because it's really creative in my brain. I'm like, what can I do with those 2 bits of yarn, you know? It's much more exciting than having a full skein for me.
Whereas I'm definitely a full skein man.
Yes. I don't know that you've ever knit anything with leftovers.
I don't want to either.
But each to their own, darling.
Imagine doing a jumper striped like that.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? Well, I would never knit a jumper like that. Well, I don't.
Start to finish.
Jumpers, I've resigned myself to the fact that I'm just not a garment knitter. I don't enjoy it.
Well, knit what you enjoy.
Knit what you enjoy, definitely. Everybody.
And there's no reason for you to be a garment knitter.
No, because you do. So.
You did knit garments.
I have done in the past.
You've done loads of garments.
I've done loads of garments, yeah.
So,
but it's just it's just not what I want to knit.
Well, that might be the case, but also there might be an element of there's no reason for you to knit garments.
There isn't a reason. That is a good point because I'm more of a product knitter. I don't have an urge to have a wardrobe full. I have got some hand knitted garments, things that Dan's made me, and I really enjoy them. But I don't have a desire to have a wardrobe full of hand knitted garments.
Whereas I do.
Whereas you do.
They're like trophies.
Yeah,
it's like a
whereas
trophy cabinet.
I do have a desire to have a massive stack of blankets.
And I have a massive
stashed away.
desire.
So we're all different, aren't we?
I have a massive desire to have a drawer and a half of socks. So
yes,
go
and
for
I'm
it.
on a mission with that as well that I'll talk about next.
Stupendous.
Yes. So Dan Jones,
Yes.
what's on your needles?
It's a new cast on. Ping!
Ping!
That's the way.
See, we needn't have created a little noise for that. We could have just done that.
No. Look, it's marvellous. This is the Sherwood socks, and it's in this gorgeous green yarn. It couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah.
I love these as more, to be honest.
I love these as more.
Well, yeah, than the whispers in the walls. I don't know why. I just really, really like. I love the cables on the side. I love the arrowheads on the back, which is really fun. But I think it's the lace bit in the middle which is particularly sort of enjoyable. And for me, it's the second bit of lace that's particularly challenging. And that's, I mean, I know it's silly, but all it is a slip one, knitwise, knit two together, pass a slip stitch over. But, you know.
You struggle with that?
I do when there's a bit of lace directly before it.
All right.
But I'm not struggling with it because I'm doing it and I haven't made a mistake. So that's all good. But it's things like that just, you know, it's always something to think about, and it keeps me sort of engaged in what I'm doing. Very similar to Kay with her wanting to push herself and, you know, always be... It's all about keeping... I think what it is for both of us is I started knitting to... What's up?
Not a thing. I was looking at your sock. I didn't say anything, did I?
So I started knitting as a sort of relaxation, and that relaxation doesn't come from doing the same thing over and over again, because then your brain is active with whatever it might be that it's active on. If there's like things, and it might only be simple things, like I've just said, then that stops me thinking about the things which I don't want to think about, and the whole reason why I enjoy knitting.
You like to engage your brain, don't
Spoken
you?
about it before. The key thing for me is there's a point when I'm knitting something where I get like a warm fuzzy feeling in my head. The description that I give is that it's like my brain's vibrating. And
this yarn's lovely.
Cool. Look at this. I mean, well, it's beautifully skeined up. And
it's really lovely.
How is the Swift and the ball winder working?
Oh, it's all right. It has its moments. You know, sometimes it's fine. It tends to do.
Does it depend on the yarn?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, this one's wound really well. This is a 2-ply, so maybe it's to do with how slippy the yarn is or something. But what it tends to do is, can you see this bit here? It tends to occasionally, it'll slip. So the yarn doesn't wind here, it just slips down and underneath, and then you end up having to sort of tuck it in at the end. So it's a bit temperamental, but I just can't be bothered researching another one right now. It's just too much work, and it's working well enough.
You'd think there's got to be a technique to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about this, haven't I, when I've been winding yarn, and I've realised that if I wind it in a certain direction, it's better.
I just wonder if there's more sort of knowledge related to the process which would enable you...
Maybe.
But, you know, at the end of the day, you just sort of want it to work, don't you?
Yeah. But I dyed this yarn, and I can't remember why, but I do remember that it started out blue.
Oh, my goodness.
Because,
and then you put the gold in.
And then I've put yellow and gold on top, because and I've also spoken about this as well, that I'm not mad keen on the green dyes that I use. There's one that I really like, and is it apple something from Dharma, sour apple. I like that one, but generally I'm not keen on green. So what I tend to do if I want a green yarn, which I must have at this point, I think I dyed this because Bryony's going through a green phase at the moment, and I think, I'll dye some green yarn and knit her some socks. And I've remembered now. I dyed this up and I showed her, and she's like, oh, it's nice, but it's not really the green I like. She likes sagey greens, so I just stuck it in my stash. That's what it is. But yeah, this started out as like a variegated blue, And then I put yellow and gold, and I can't even remember. I will have put gold ochre in there because I always do, but there will have been other yellows as well, I'm sure. And it changed the blue to green. But because it was originally blue, you do get sections where you've got like a bluish hue to the green, and that's just lovely. And then when you're knitting it there, you can see
For me,
so many shades of green. It's a brilliant way of creating a green.
You know those fields with the tall grass that sometimes like have a path like that you walk through? And it's like walking through that sort of tall grass fields.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the shades.
It couldn't be more summery,
all
actually.
The different shades. You get golden greens, you get bluish greens, and then a more sort of bright green. Really pretty.
And did you say that's a 2-ply?
This is a 2-ply,
right.
Yeah. It's an 85-15, but it's the high twist, so it's a 2-ply.
Yeah.
And I don't mind a 2-ply, but I prefer a 4-ply yarn.
Right. What's the difference with regards to the knitting?
It just makes your stitches look a bit different, and it's a bit harder of a feel.
Right.
It's not as... I find a 2-ply is not as squishy.
Right.
But it's perfectly lovely.
I wonder if it affects the wear. You know, if one would last longer than the other.
Not sure. I mean, we'd have to judge that, maybe.
Interesting.
Because 2-ply is like a rope, isn't it? And a 4-ply looks more of a rounded yarn. Yeah.
The Sherwood socks are part of Kay's Platinum collection.
Yes.
She designed them initially for me a few years ago, and then they actually got released within the Platinum collection.
Yes.
And I love them so much. I think as well because you designed them for me as a special thing, that makes them like feel particularly sort of cool.
This green is beautiful. Bryony, what's she like? She's very specific about her greens.
Yeah, also her hair colour.
Do you know, it's so funny, right? I was...
Bryony is, of course, our daughter.
Bryony's our daughter. She's 18 now, but I do still use she's not very confident using a hair straightener. She's a bit kind of scared of it still with the heat and everything. So I still sort of straighten a fringe for her in the morning. And I was doing that the other morning, and I said, "Oh, do you know, darling, your hair's such a lovely colour." I said, "But it was a surprise when you were born, because her hair was really dark when she was born, lots of dark hair." And I honestly thought, because of Dan's sort of lots of red in his hair, and when I was really young, I was blonde. So I fully expected her to come out and she'd have a sort of strawberry blonde hair. And I said this to her, and she just went, "Well, I'm very glad I don't." I was like, oh gosh, she's such a teenager at the moment, honestly. I said, "Oh, well, you know, whatever your hair colour was, it would have looked beautiful because that's your hair colour. And I always think that hair colour that you're born with suits you the most, you know." And it's just funny. She was like, "Oh, well, I'm very glad I don't." But she's got lovely hair. It's like an auburn. There's glints of red in it. It's beautiful. But essentially, it's quite a dark colour, her hair. And she's got lots of curl in it, which she's always complaining about. Like the other morning, she's like, "Look at this bit of hair." She's like this, look. And I said, "What's wrong with it?" And it was like this sort of ringlet. And she's like, "Oh, like this." I said, "Bryony, it's beautiful." I said, "It's gorgeous." And I said, "You'd complain if you had bang straight hair." "Oh, no, I don't want straight hair." I said, "Well, what are you moaning at then? You've got beautiful hair. Sit down and be quiet." But it's just that sort of, she's in that, I don't know, it's a teenage thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Likes to just have a general moan.
What else is on your needles?
So, in this next project bag, this bag actually, this is the only bag I've got from this maker. It's Coco and Flora. She's in the UK, isn't she? And I've had this a while, and I don't even know whether she's sewing at the moment, but I'm a sucker for patchwork. Emma knows that at Moo and Mouse. She knows that I'm an absolute sucker for patchwork. And I saw this one and just couldn't resist it. I thought the patchwork was so lovely. So I've had this one for a while. It's a really nice bag. And in this bag, I have got a new sock cast on.
Oh, no.
Ha-ha. Bing. Because I've finished a pair of socks for me, and I'm going to show you those later. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to start another pair because, and this is my little mission this year, recently I had a bit of a tidy out of my sock drawer, and over the past few years, I haven't generally knitted socks for myself. They've all kind of gone to Bryony because my sock drawer was stuffed full. But when I actually pulled everything out, I thought, do you know what? All of these are really old now, and the legs were quite long, and maybe some of them weren't colours that I really like now. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put all these into the long-term storage. Oh, that makes me think of working in the bank. Oh, happy days of having to visit long-term storage to pull out vouchers that customers wanted to see. Anyway, I had to climb out of a window, go across a roof, up a ladder. It's very exciting. Anyway, yeah, I put those into long-term storage because there's nothing wrong with them. And I've now got a fairly empty sock drawer. So the pair that I've just finished are going to go into it. And I thought I'm going to start another pair because what I really love at the moment is shorty socks. I've explained this, I think, on the last video. So I thought I'm just going to spend this year knitting loads of shorty socks that I really love the yarns and the colours. And I'm going to save them all up. These are going to be my sock stash. So we're running sock stash again this year for our patrons. So these socks that I'm knitting are going to be my sock stash, my own sock stash. And that feels really nice to be knitting things for myself because generally I will knit a pair of socks and it'll be for Dan or it'll be for Bryony. So this has been so lovely. So yeah, I've started another pair and I just love this yarn. So I thought I'm just going to go into my stash of yarn and have a look at what I've got and just pick a pretty skein that I want to work with. And this skein I actually bought recently. Now I'm going to see if I can pop it on a block because it's on double point, so I think, yes, I can do it because you can see it better, can't you? I'm only on the first sock. So the yarn I'm using is from Sherry Iris. I bought a couple of skeins from Sherry recently, and at Christmas, she, in her Christmas update, I bought one, it's somewhere up there, that looked kind of festive. I think it's called Grandma's Quilt, sort of reds and green, really pretty. But then I saw this one, and one of my favourite colour combinations is pink and purple together, and particularly the right shades of pink and purple. And this yarn was exactly the right shades of pink and purple. There's also sort of flashes of a slightly buttery yellow. So it's lovely sherry, and the colourway is called Granny's Bonnets. And if you don't know what that refers to, it's actually a flower. It's an Aquilegia. Aquilegias are beautiful, beautiful flowers, and the flower kind of looks like an old-fashioned bonnet, hence the name. And they come in all of these gorgeous colours. So this is the yarn, and it's this combination of this pretty pink and sort of a lilac, and then you probably might not be able to see the flashes of like a slightly buttery yellow in there, but you can in the sock, which I'll show you in a second. I haven't been concerned about how, you know what I'm like with how yarns knit up, right? But I'm trying to get over this. But I know Sherry's yarns, and I've knit with Sherry's yarns before. And whilst when you're knitting a sock, you might get points where you get little flashes of things happening, I think generally speaking, her yarn, for me, doesn't pool in the way that I don't like pooling. But in any case, I just thought, do you know what? I love these colours. I am just going to use this yarn, and I'm just going to knit a pair of socks, and I'm not going to worry. And it's just been brilliant. So here's where I'm up to on the sock. So I popped it on a blocker to help a little bit. And I just love it. So you can see here over the gusset, yeah, there's a bit of sort of pooliness going on. It's not on the other side, it works differently, doesn't it, on both sides. But when it's just knitting normally here, and then obviously it's just gone back to it here now because I'm through the gussets, it just sort of looks slightly stripy, which I think is really nice. So I'm just doing a straightforward plain vanilla shorty sock, but I've put in a bit of a fancy rib. just give it a bit of interest. And I've used this rib before. Now I'll tell you where I used this rib. I used this rib on the sock design that went into the Vogue magazine. Do you remember those that I did a couple of years ago now? Probably it is. And I used this rib there. So that pattern it's within the magazine, and I don't have the rights to that pattern. So I won't give you specific details on the rib because it's not a design that is in my portfolio any longer. But it's just a bit of a fancy rib, and I think it's really pretty. So I've just done, what did I do? I did 12 rounds rib, 24 rounds leg, heel flap, French turn, gusset decreases, and then I'll just work down to the toe and do an umbrella toe. But it's just been so lovely, and I'm using double points, as you can see. Let me take it off the blocker. I just thought I'm just going to use my favourite double points so that I get all of my sort of favourite feelings. And it's just been lovely. I've really enjoyed it. I did consider putting in a contrast colour for the heel, and I could have gone through my stash and maybe found a pink or a purple that matched. But in the end, I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to, because I'm just going to let the yarn do what the yarn does. And I really love the colours, the pink and the purple, and those little sort of flashes of that buttery yellow colour. And I'm just really enjoying knitting them, and I'll have a beautiful pair of shorty socks for my sock stash to go into my sock drawer, which I think is really fun. So really, really enjoying this. I'm using 2.5mm double points because I knit a bit tighter on double points. And it's funny, actually. I'll talk about it when I show you the ones that I'd finished, but I mentioned last time when I was knitting the socks that I've finished, that I'll show you, that my stitches were looking a bit, untidy, and I was kind of struggling a little bit with not horrendous ladders, but with this yarn, which is the standard 75/25, there's no sign of any ladders at all. My stitches are perfectly neat. So I do think it's maybe that yarn that I was using for the pair I've finished. So I'll talk about that a bit later. So yeah, very much enjoying that pair. And I'm using my little knitting notebook that's been stickered. I put this little frog sticker on just as a reminder for me personally. And then Bryony gave me these two from some bookish sort of stickers that she had. So that's my little sock notebook.
Look at my body.
Oh, okay. Fine.
There's an overlay over the top, Kay.
Okay.
It's my Aaron Harper Gansey.
Dream.
It's marvellous. It's all coming together, and look, we now have 2 sleeves, and I'm like 3 rows away from being able to join.
Wow.
Or maybe 4.
That's a momentous point, isn't it?
I love joining them together, and I know what I'm doing. I'm like, it's just the business. It's really lovely. There's not many things where I'm like, yes, I know what I'm doing here, and this is one of the things where I just totally get it.
And then you get to do loads of colour work.
I know.
So that's really exciting.
It's great. The yarn's great to work with. It is great to work with.
Does it smell sheepy?
Yeah, and I love the smell of sheeps.
Oh, it is nice.
And it's so soft, and I think I probably will. It's good experience knitting with this yarn, and I probably will knit myself something in this.
It is lovely. It's the Shetland. It's the Jamesons and Smith Shetland Aran weight, isn't it?
I might just sort of see how you go with it.
It's got a lovely silky feel to it, hasn't it?
It's really even. The stitches look really even, and it works up really great, and it's great. It's great,
It looks gorgeous. I feel like I need to be in a harbour wearing.
No, you're just obsessed with that fella from the Radari.
Yes. Oh no, I thought you meant the fella on this pattern.
Oh no.
Oh, he's very handsome.
No, he isn't. No, look. Look, he's lovely.
He's lovely.
At that age, lovely. But I'm sure we'd all prefer to run off into the sunset with a fella off the Radari.
With the fella with the rope.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it lovely, all knit like that and piled up? You see, I look at that and I think, oh, that'd make a lovely blanket, wouldn't it?
No. much better as a jumper. And it's the yoke that I've sort of been looking forward to the most. So I hope it's really enjoyable. I think it will be. We'll wait and see.
Oh, I can't wait to wear it. This is for me.
Yeah, I'm hoping, the cascades fit you, so that's good. So, hopefully, it's the first colourwork one that I've done for you.
Well, looking at the size of it, I think it'll...
It's just length. We just need to make sure the length's right. Well, the length is what the length is now. And you don't like them too long.
No.
So that's good.
Not when it's this kind of a jumper, because I'll be wearing this with jeans, and I don't want a long jumper with jeans. It just adds bulk to areas that do not need bulk adding.
So sleeves will be going on hopefully at the weekend, and then
It's
if I can push it, hopefully maybe next time be able to show you it with some colour work on the yoke.
Wow.
Woohoo. What else is on your needles?
So the final thing I've got to show you is Dan's socks that I've been working on.
This isn't another new cast on, is it?
No.
Thank goodness.
Nope. So these socks I showed you last time, and I'm still on the first sock, but I'm not far off the toe now. And I've sort of transitioned them to be my bedtime knitting, because it's just that round and round. I got past the heel, and then it was easy for me for these to be bedtime knitting, and perfect really. So I'm not getting through like 10 rows each night. Some nights I am, but other nights I'll fall asleep after 5 rows. But they're getting worked on every day, and that's what's important, I think. You chip away at these things, and before you know it, you'll have a finished sock, and the next one will be on the needles. So yeah, this is the first one. Look at the yarn now. Oh, isn't that lovely? Just seeing it like that, all in a big long run. So I've put in, you can see the heel here. I decided on the bamboo heather. This is Knit Pick Stroll bamboo heather. So I popped that in for the heel, which I think works really well. And now I'm just working down the foot. And this marker here, this is the 100 rows point from the cast on down here. This is 100 rounds, I should say. And so I'm now on about 112 rounds, and I'm not sure. I think I have to get to...
Is a round the same as a row?
Well, a round is when you're working in the round. A row is when you're working flat.
Oh.
But, it's just easy to get confused, isn't it? Swapping one for the other. So I need to do 8 less than I did over here. So I need to do about 136 rounds, something like that. So I'm about 20 rounds off the toe. So not far at all, really. So that's exciting. And then I'm going to use the same green, the same Knit Picks for the toe. This Knit Picks is super soft. I mean, I hope it wears okay, because it is really soft. But Dan's socks, to be fair, don't wear out on the heel. They wear out on the ball of his foot down here somewhere. And I have thought about analysing that and maybe doing a sort of reinforced area, but then I think I'd have to get the exact area, wouldn't I? And socks move about in your foot. And then I thought about it for way too long and realised that, you know what, I'll just knit socks. And if they wear out, and I'll knit more. So, yeah. But they're lovely. So this yarn is the Paint Sock from Laine de Nord. And I know a lot of you commented on this yarn saying that you really like it as well. And I think you can still get it. If you do shop around, you can still find it. And I do have one of the skein, which I got out actually. Oh, how funny. This says something different on the front of it.
Do you remember a few years ago you went on a mission to try and find the new Opal because Opal had changed?
Yes.
And you got a load of new socks. This wasn't one of the...
No.
Right.
No.
I don't know why I've got this stuck in my head. When you spoke about this last time, I recognised the name. And
right.
So I don't understand why.
No, well, this is the other one I've got, which is more like a rainbow. You can see there's purple in there. But this one says something different on the front. It's Paint Sock, and everything's the same about it. But this one just says luxury line underneath it. This one says 2 identical socks, and then some language of words that I don't understand. There you go.
Oh, did I hear someone say about there's a section in it that tells you where to start knitting your next sock or something?
In this?
Crumbs.
I know that Regia have that, don't they,
Right.
with the Regia, what's it called?
Look, I've seen somewhere,
Oh, maybe this is...
maybe it was a comment in the patrons' private Facebook group.
Oh, I mean, it does say 2 identical sock on this one, but not on this one that I'm knitting with. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So anyway, this one is colour 20. So this will be another pair of socks for Dan. You know, we'll see how this one wears, but if he likes them, then I'll maybe use that other skein for you as well.
What's it been like to knit with?
Lovely.
Right.
Although, I'm not finding the thick and thin thing quite so much anymore. It was more at the beginning.
Yeah.
But there are still areas where the yarn does go, slightly thinner. But I'm not finding it a bother. I was just letting you know really how it was, what the yarn was like. And I'm very much enjoying it. I mean, this is it's quite a rope-like construction. And I think, did I look at it before? I'm not sure if it's a 2 or a 3 ply. I'm really not sure. But it should be nice and hard wearing, I think. I feel like it should be. It's a 75-25, so I feel like it should be. But yeah, very much enjoying knitting. Here's for you. Lovely.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been way too long since Kay's been in the kitchen. I'm in for a full series because I know she was at Christmas, and that really was delicious.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, yes. That was the warm-up for the main act, which begins today. Kay's brand new series, 6 episodes. It's all about refinement and beauty. Oh, yes. And it begins with an absolute showstopper. Welcome to Kay's Classic Bakes.
As I've grown older, I've come to realise I am at heart an old-fashioned girl. Put me in a kitchen baking something wonderful and I am in heaven. There is something very special about baking. It's like chemistry as the ingredients come together to hopefully create something wonderful. This year, I'm going to share with you 6 of my favourite bakes. Along the way, I'm going to add some little twists in my attempt for perfection. Welcome to Kay's Classic Bakes. I am back doing some baking. Very exciting because this is the first time I've done a baking sort of little series since 2022. So very excitingly, I need to tell you what it is that we are going to bake today. Now, I thought we would start off the year in style. So what are we going to make? Well, we are going to bake some lemon meringue pies. Now I say pies because this is how I found to reduce that kind of stress that you can get when making a lemon meringue pie. That's difficult to say. Because I've found before when I've made them, and do you know how you make the big sort of pie and you cut into it? I've always been kind of terrified that it's not going to have set properly in the middle because you've got such a big sort of surface area of the sort of lemony mixture. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to make individual ones. So I'm going to be making 4 mini lemon meringue pies. And it's brilliant. I've gone through this, I've made these before and it worked absolutely perfectly. And I think it's also a bit more dainty. I think that's what I'm aiming for as well with this series. I want sort of pretty things, a little bit more dainty, and something that you could make if you've got like some friends coming round or family and you kind of want to impress them without it actually being too scary. So this is, I found that these just look impressive in the mini form. You know, they're really pretty, really impressive, and most importantly, they taste fantastic. And actually, you know, the elements themselves, when we're going to make these, I should say, it's not difficult. It's just that we've got 3 different things we need to do to create these pies. So we need to get on with it, don't we? So this recipe I found online, and it's on the Waitrose website. So if you don't know what Waitrose is, if you're not in this country, it's a posh supermarket chain. So that's where I found the recipe, and it's brilliant. Okay, so what have I got here on my table? So first of all, I've got flour. Now, you just need some plain white flour. I'm using spelt because I think you know by now I use spelt, but you just want plain white flour. Doesn't matter if it's not spelt, whatever you want to use. I've got some corn flour. I think corn flour in like the States might be corn starch, but double check on that. I've got some caster sugar, which is finer than the sort of standard granulated sugar. It's the sugar that generally is used in baking in this country. So we've got white caster sugar. I've got butter, and I always prefer salted butter. If you prefer unsalted, then go for it, use unsalted. I've got 3 eggs, and these are nice large eggs, and these ones are free range. So I'm hoping for some nice golden yolks, because the more golden your yolk is, then the richer the sort of colour of the custardy curdy mixture. Talking of lemons, I've got 3 lemons. These are nice big lemons. They are unwaxed. Really important, they should not be waxed. And then I've got icing sugar. My box is a bit battered, so I do apologise for that, but I've got icing sugar here as well. The final kind of ingredient, and this is an optional extra, but I've got some limoncello. Limoncello, if you're not aware, is a Italian lemon liqueur. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this just, you don't kind of taste the alcohol in it at all. It just gives a sort of slight depth to the flavour. And bonus, you get to drink it afterwards. I'm not a huge drinker, I don't drink a whole lot at all, but this is lovely. And I found a really nice way of drinking this is you just put a little bit in a glass and then top it up with fizzy water, with like sparkling water. It's absolutely gorgeous. So limoncello, if you fancy just adding that little bit extra pizzazz. So that's all of the sort of ingredients. We're then going to need some, I want to say notions, but it's not really notions, but bowls and things like that. So over here, these are my tins that I'm going to be making the pies in. Now these are 10 centimetre flan tins, and they're the ones that have a loose bottom, because it's then really easy to just push out your pies. I found these I think I just got these on Amazon, but the brand is Tala, T-A-L-A, and they're excellent. I've used these a couple of times now and they're really brilliant. It's really solid metal and really, really good. So 10 centimetre fluted, so it's got that lovely crimped edge, flan tins. And then a couple of bowls. I've got my weighing scales just off to the side, and that's about it really. We're going to need you'll see as we go along, I'm going to use an electric mixer and, things like that. Things you will generally have in your kitchen anyway. So the first thing that we've got to do in the making of our beautiful pies is we make the pastry. Don't panic. So I'm going to clear the decks a little bit and I'll just bring in the things that I'm going to need to make the pastry, and we will get cracking. So to make the pastry, first of all, into a nice roomy bowl, I'm going to put the flour and the icing sugar first of all. So I'm just going to pop my bowl on the scales, and we need 220 grams of the flour. I don't bother sieving it. You probably should. Life's too short for me to sieve flour at this point. So 220 grams. There we go. And then 35 grams of icing sugar. So it's a sweetened short crust pastry. that we're making and pop in the icing sugar. Try not to get too many clouds coming up. There we go. And then I just give that a little mix together. Don't worry if you have a few little sort of lumps of icing sugar, because they will go when we rub in the butter. And now we need some butter. So we need 125 grams of butter. And what I do is I just kind of cube it up a little bit as I drop it in. On our butter packs in this country, there's like little 50 gram, 100 gram, 150 gram marks along the butter, so that does help you a little bit. I would just look at 50, 100, and then it's sort of halfway between 100 and 125, and I know that's roughly how much I'm going to need, so that's a good guesstimate. So what I will do is just cut it there, and then just cut it into chunks and throw it in and just see what it weighs until we get to 125 grams. Now this is not freezing cold from the fridge, but it's still quite cool. It shouldn't be like super soft and melty. I know that a lot of people make their pastry in food processors. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. I've never done that, to be honest with you, with pastry, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't have a food processor because I just think I don't like lots of equipment that you've got to find homes for in the kitchen. Oh, 122. That wasn't a bad guess, was it? I only need 3 more grams. But also, there we go. I just think if I can do it by hand and save me having to wash up a massive food processor with the blade and all of the other stuff, then that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So when I want to now go in, and I have to kind of stand on tiptoes to do this because I'm not sure, but I always find that I'm not really tall enough to reach into a bowl to start doing the rubbing in. So all I'm doing is just rubbing that butter into the flour and the icing sugar until it resembles breadcrumbs. Okay, so we've got lovely breadcrumby looking pastry now. So this is at the stage where we start adding in the lemon flavouring, because I'm going to pop in here now the zest of one of the lemons. I've got one of these microplane graters or zesters, I'm not sure if it's a grater or a zester. They're brilliant, but they are quite deadly, so you just need to be really careful with them. But they do give you really fine zest, and it just takes off that very top layer. We don't want to get that white pith underneath. So I just go around just doing single strokes like that and go round the lemon, just getting off that very top yellow outer zest that's got all of the oils and all of the flavour. And this is when it starts to smell delicious as well. And don't worry about getting every last bit off, because I'd rather not risk going over an area and getting any pith. I really just want that very outer zest. I think that's good enough. So then I'm just going to sort of flick that around. And now what we're going to do to bring the pastry together into a dough is we're going to add an egg yolk. But what you need to do is you need to reserve the white of the egg, because we're going to be using that for the meringue. So I've got another bowl over here which I'm going to bring in. So I'm going to pop the white into this bowl and then the yolk into here. What we'll say about the egg white is make sure your bowl is really clean, and to be absolutely sure there's no grease in there, then you can take a bit of a lemon, funnily, like just a slice of a lemon, and wipe it all around, and that just eliminates any last bits of grease that you might have in there. There we go. That's it. These are nice golden yolks, so that's really good. And then the yolk into there. So I'm just going to pop my egg white over there, keep that to one side. And now I'm just going to sort of mix the yolk first of all, and then just flick through the pastry, and it should come together into a nice dough. So I am just adding a spot of milk into mine. I just feel like it needs a bit extra moisture. So if yours does, just a little spot of milk, and then, you know, if you need to put a bit more in, then do. Once it starts sort of coming into clumps, you can then put the knife aside, go in with your hand and just bring it all together. This is where it becomes apparent that it's been a while since I've done a baking series, because what I should have done, and the reason this is not coming together into a pastry form, is because I should have added the juice of the lemon as well. So it doesn't matter that I've added a bit of milk in there, that won't make a dot of difference. But what you should have done is added the zest and the juice of the lemon. So what I'm actually going to do, because I've added a little spot of milk in there, I'm just going to take half a lemon, I'm just going to squeeze it in and then put enough in until it comes together as a dough. Okay, there we go. So you can see it's all sort of gravelly now looking. So just go in with your hand and just start bringing it together into a dough. And it should just leave the bowl clean. That's what Delia always used to say. And it does. So there we go, there's our lovely dough. And you can see all the little flecks of lemon in there. So now what you need to do with that is just sort of flatten it down. Don't mess with it too much, because pastry doesn't like being messed with. So just flatten it down a little bit, and then I'm just going to wrap it in a little bit of cling film, or you could use greaseproof paper if you don't want to use cling film, and then just pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes just to rest. Okay, so our pastry has had some chilling time in the fridge, so we're going to roll it out now and line our tins. So here we go, we've got our pastry. So I'm going to roll this out to about 1/2 centimetre thick. You know, it doesn't want to be super thick, but conversely we don't want it paper thin, you know, because it's got to hold that filling. And if you keep giving it sort of quarter turns, it will keep it round first of all, not that that really matters in this instance because we're going to be cutting shapes out of it, but it also just makes sure that we're not sticking to the work surface. So I'm now just looking at the thickness, and I think we're about at 1/2 centimetre there, I would say. So now we're going to cut circles out, but they want to be bigger obviously than the circumference of your tin, because we've got the depth here as well that we need to accommodate. So I'm just going to sort of guesstimate it really and just do a circle that's bigger than the tin. Doesn't have to be exactly circular, just roughly is fine. So I'm going to do 4 of those. There you go. So that piece conveniently came away, and if you think the piece that you've just cut out is a bit too thick, you can just roll it an extra little bit. So I'm just moving all these bits out of the way. There's my leftovers, and we'll have probably a bit more left over as well. So what we're going to do now is just line the tins. So you want to ease it in. I haven't greased these tins because I found I didn't need to. They're like super slippy non-stickness. But if you want to grease them beforehand, then obviously do that. If you have got tins that you know and you've used before. So I'm just easing this in and just gently pushing the pastry to the outer edge. We don't want any air gaps like that. And when you've gone all the way around and you're happy that it's all the way to the edge, then I'm just going to sort of gently push it into those crimps because we want those is it called a fluted? I'm not sure. But you know, the sort of crimping around the tin. We want to push the pastry into those, you know, the flutiness, if you like, so that we see that when the pastry is baked. Now you can see I have cut this pastry way too big, but that's fine. Now what the recipe actually tells you to now do is to just take a rolling pin and roll it over that and chop off all of that excess pastry. Now I'm going to tell you to do something slightly different, and it's up to you which option you do. But what I find is when you blind bake this, because that's what we're going to do next, the pastry will shrink. And if you chop it off to the level of the pastry tin, it's going to shrink down a bit. So I'm going to get some scissors. I actually cut round and leave a bit at the top, and then I'm going to trim that when the pastry is baked, and then it gives a really professional sharp edge to the top of your pie. So just grab hold and trim it so that we're leaving a bit of excess at the top, not loads, but just so it sits just slightly above the tin. Okay, and then add that to our leftovers. So you can see we've got a little bit extra above there, and then you can just make sure you've pushed that all the way into those crimps around the edge. Once I've done all three like this, we will be ready to blind bake them. So we've got our little case all lined here, and then what I've got here are 4 squares of baking parchment that I've crumpled up and then unravel, because if you crumple it all up, it then makes it really easy to get into all the nooks and crannies. If you try and do it just as a flat piece of baking parchment, it won't go in. That's all crumpled up, and you can now sort of tuck it in. Now if you've got some baking beans, use your baking beans. If you don't, then just take some rice or lentils, works just as well, and just sprinkle it in, and all we're doing is we're holding it down. That'll be enough. Make sure that your baking parchment goes all the way to the edge, and that's ready to blind bake. So I've got my oven preheating. Actually, while I just get on and do the other 3, I'm preheating the oven to 180 degrees C. So I'm going to get these other 3 done, and then when the oven's preheated, I'm going to pop them in for 15 minutes initially. I'm then going to take them out. I'm going to remove the rice in my case and the paper, and then pop them back in just bare pastry, you know, pastry shells, for another 5 minutes. Our tins with our pastry in are now out of the oven, and they're just cooling down a little bit. So it's time now to make the delicious lemony curdy filling. Okay, so I'm over, as you can see now, on the stove, and in my saucepan here I've got 45 grams of corn flour. And what I'm going to do before I add any heat into that, I'm going to pop in the zest of the 2 other lemons that we had. And then I've got the juice of the 2 other lemons plus whatever juice you've got left over from making your pastry. Add that in. And now I'm going to whisk this just to form a thin paste. When you are working with corn flour, if everything's cold, you won't get any lumps. It's when you start adding heat, that's when you're going to get problems if you've not already sort of amalgamated all your ingredients. So just give everything a whisk, and if you can't get into the corners, then I'm just going to get a little spoon. I just want to make sure that I get all of that corn flour from the edges. So just make sure you've amalgamated everything, and you end up with like a thin paste, you can see there. And now I'm going to add in caster sugar. I've got 125 grams, and then 60 grams of butter. And now we are going to add some heat. So we want to heat this for about 5 minutes until the butter and the sugar have the sugar will dissolve, the butter will melt, until that's all happened and it starts to thicken slightly. Okay, so that's all dissolved and melted now, and it's sort of getting a little bit thicker. So now if you add in your limoncello, so I'm putting in a tablespoon. So that's added in. So now we're going to take our 2 remaining egg yolks that we had, and I've just beaten those a little bit. We're going to add those in, beating all the time. And you can see the difference in the colour that having really good free-range egg yolks makes. So now turn up the heat, and we want to bring it up to sort of almost boiling point really. Keep stirring until we get it gets nice and thick, and it'll be like the consistency of lemon curd. It takes about 5 minutes. Okay, so this is now thickened. It's sort of the consistency of lemon curd, but sort of hot lemon curd because it's hot, and it will thicken more as it cools once the pies are cooked. So this is ready now to add to the pastry cases, but before I add it in, I'm just going to trim off that pastry that I spoke about before. Okay, so I've already done 3 of these, and you can see I've trimmed the edges. So I'll just show you what I do. So this is easier to do if your knife is a serrated knife, I find. And all we're going to do is just run the knife around the edge to the level of the tin. And this just gives a really sharp edge and gives that kind of professional look, I always think. And if we had done what the recipe told us to do, we wouldn't get that really nice sharp edge, because inevitably it would have sort of shrunk down a little bit. So that's our pastry tins all sorted. I'm going to now get the filling, and we're going to pour the filling into the cases. It doesn't want to be, right up to the very top, but fairly full. So I'm just going to go round them all and then go back round. So I can put a little bit more in. You might find you've got some left over. I found that it depends on the size of your lemons really as to how much mixture it makes. But that looks good. And I've used pretty much all of that actually. And we're not right up to the top, there's a tiny gap there. Okay, so our filling is now just having a bit of a cool in the pastry lining. So when we come back in part 2, we are going to be whisking up the meringues, we're going to be piling it on top of that delicious lemon filling, and then we're going to bake it in the oven, and then we're going to eat them. So I will see you back soon.
Now look, I'm the first to admit that I am literally the luckiest man alive. And the reason being is, not only do I get to eat that you're seeing being prepared right now, but I get to eat the ones that came before too.
Yes.
And the ones that came after. Oh my goodness. Not even tried it yet, but trust me, it's going to be like it's literally, it's an explosion in your mouth. It's like...
zingy, it's, it's lovely.
It's the filling.
Fresh and zingy.
It's the filling.
Yeah, which is just effectively lemon curd, isn't it? So if you want, just make yourself some lemon curd and put it on some toast. Delicious.
It is delicious. It is delicious.
Yes.
But the pastry also, as we'll find out later on in the episode, spelt flour makes tremendous pastry.
It does make excellent pastry.
It stays crisp.
Yes.
And spelt flour, for some reason as well, we spoke about this before with the bread, it just lasts. So when you make stuff, a day or two later, it's not going to be soggy and weird, and it's just great. But meringue in the second part.
Yes.
Oh.
Meringue.
Oh, with lovely gooey centres.
Yes, it is.
All to come in part 2. Right now, though,
you're going to love it.
It's time for me to say, Kay Jones, what's off your needles.
I do have 2 things off my needles. So the first thing is a pair of socks. It's the ones that I was just talking about.
What's up with those socks?
Yeah, as Bryony said. What's going on with them socks, Mum? They're not for you, so it doesn't matter. Get on.
We've said a few times recently how teenagers can like ruin you in like
in
a couple of words.
Yeah, in seconds.
Or a look.
I know.
We've been taking to thoroughly embarrassing our teenage daughter though, which has been really quite fun.
I don't embarrass.
Yeah, you do. You do.
What do I do?
Well,
she doesn't like it.
Things.
She doesn't like it when we're romantic with each other. So we do that quite a lot.
Yes. But also as well, I'll be like,
she's just like, ugh.
I'll pick her up from school and I'll just start talking about like how amazing a mum is and stuff, and she'll be like,
which is really very funny. Unkind, because we're not like that with her and her boyfriend, you know.
I love it though.
I'm sure she wouldn't like it if we did that.
It just winds her up there. It makes me laugh.
But it is enjoyable.
Yes.
So yeah, I've finished these funky socks. So these are the ones that I knit using a skein of Eden Cottage Yarns Milburn, and this is a BFL and silk yarn, and I used just a 50-gram ball, which is 200 metres, in Azalea, which is this gorgeous pink, and then I used leftovers from London House Yarns in the Yule Ball colourway to put this funky stripe section on the foot. So I've blocked these now, and to be fair, they do look neater than they were, but they're still not super neat. So my conclusion is that the yarn is just not maybe conducive for getting super neat stitches. It could be that it's not. I mean, I've got a little bit left over actually. This is what I've got left over, and I don't know what that is. There's only probably not 10, there isn't 10 grams there, probably a bit less than 10 grams. I mean, it's a lovely yarn, but silk can be a little bit slubby, can't it? And I wonder if it's that's making it not quite as consistent. It was lovely to knit with, and I'll use it again for socks. If these wear well, which I've no reason to believe they won't, I will definitely use it again for socks. I really enjoyed knitting it. I don't think it's necessarily a yarn that's designed for socks, but it was lovely. So yeah, this is my first pair for my new sock drawer and my first pair for sock stash.
Brilliant.
So they're all done and lovely. And then the second thing I finished is my tin roof hat. So this is my own design. I am going to put it on actually so you can see it on, and then I'll just deal with my hair afterwards. It's really lovely. So this is the hat that I designed because what I wanted, I'll take it off and then I can show you, but you can see how lovely it fits, and it comes all the way over my ears. It's just got a little bit of slouch. I designed this because I wanted to knit a hat that was pure knit stitches. So it's got this folded brim, which you can see here where the fold is. So it's just all knits, and I've been experimenting with this hat because I knit another one, if you remember, in the Pixie Yarns, which is where the name came from, because that was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, so hence the tin roof hat. And I've been wearing that hat a ton, and it's been brilliant. So I wanted to knit another one. So this yarn that I used, I think I've only used about 50 grams. I haven't weighed my leftovers. But this was from the Wool Barn, a really sort of vintage stash yarn. And the colourway was Beachcomber. And it's just this gorgeous speckled yarn. Really pretty. And it just worked out perfectly. I absolutely love it. But what I'm going to try, I think I'm going to go down a needle size, because I'll have to double check, but I think I used a 2.75 and a 3mm, I think. But I quite fancy a bit of a tighter gauge, so I think I'm going to do another one and just go down a needle size. I'm going to use the same stitch count because it's quite a generous fit, this, which is how I like hats. I don't like them to be, super tight on my head. I just like them to sit nicely. So it is quite a generous size. So I think I'm going to give that a go. So I'm still kind of experimenting with this hat and still debating on things, but I'm very much enjoying knitting them up. It's really pleasant to knit. You know, you just cast on and you just knit. And then when you've done enough, you know, you get to that point where you join the cast on edge to your live stitches, and hence you get this sort of folded brim look. And then you just carry on knitting until it's long enough and do some decreases. And I like rapid decreases on this sort of a hat. So, can you see that? Isn't it lovely? So yeah, but I would like something that's a bit tight of a gauge. So I'm on the search for another yarn is what I'm looking for currently. Because although I like the light coloured hat, I just feel more inconspicuous in the dark colour. I know that probably sounds ridiculous, but I think I'd just like something that was maybe a bit darker. So I'm going to have a look through my stash, see what I've got. If I've not got the right yarn, maybe I'll have a look around for a pretty tonal somewhere. So we shall see. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes. But I've got another hat, so I'm very happy with that.
Cool. Less hats, more meringue. Yes, it's time for part 2 of Kay's Classic Bakes. Kay's going to be making the gorgeous meringue, getting it on top of the pies, getting them in the oven, ready then for tasting time. Oh, yes.
Yummy. Welcome back everybody to part 2 of Kay's Classic Bakes, where we are making the delicious lemon meringue pies. So it's time now to get to the meringue. So we're going to whip up the meringue and we're going to finish off our pies and get them in the oven. Okay, so final thing to do is to whisk up the meringues. So in my bowl here, I've got the 3 egg whites from the eggs that we've been using as we've gone along. So I'm going to whisk these up first of all just by themselves until they're all billowy and fluffy. Okay, so we've reached that kind of peak stage. You can see there, if you pull it up, it forms a peak and it stays there. So now we can start adding in the sugar. So I've got 185 grams of caster sugar here, and I'm going to add this in with the beaters running, just gradually, like tablespoon at a time. Go slow with it. So you can see now we've got this lovely glossy, just beautiful mixture. The very final thing we're going to do is add a teaspoon of corn flour. So back into the corn flour, teaspoon, just sprinkle it over. Oops, I need my other hand. And then just mix this through with your spoon. When I've made this before, again this depends on the size of your egg yolks, on your eggs. It's made quite a lot of meringue and I had leftovers. There we go. That's our meringue all ready to pop on the top of our pies. Okay, so I've got my pie cases here, and what will have happened whilst we've been doing the meringue is these will have just set slightly. You know, they've chilled down and they've started to firm up, which is brilliant because that makes popping on the meringue much easier. So all I'm going to do is blob on teaspoonfuls and then sort of swirl it. Now, if you've got a piping bag and you want to do it really posh and lovely, then by all means do that. Equally, we can just pile it on and it will taste just as delicious. So I'm just going to pile blobs on, sort of starting at the outside edge, like that. And just work your way around. Take your time a little bit, you know. And you can sort of make these as high as you want, really, in terms of the meringue. What I'm going to do is sort of smooth that around a little bit and call this my kind of bottom layer. And then we're going to pile a bit more on top. You don't want to make it so heavy that it's going to push down on the filling. But you can certainly pile up a nice amount. And then just use your spoon to swirl like Mr. Whippy. So I'm just going to keep going now and do the other three. Okay, so I'm just finishing off this last one, and you can see I do have some meringue mixture left, so I'm just going to get out a baking tray and blob it on some greaseproof paper and just pop it in the oven with the pies. Just make yourself some little meringue nests. So now all I'm going to do is put these back on the baking tray, pop them in the oven, which is still at 180 degrees C for 15 minutes, and the tops will become just sort of slightly starting to turn a little bit sort of toasty brown. And then as soon as we take them out of the oven, you need to either let them cool to room temperature, or you can chill them and then eat them. But at least room temperature. We need to just let them sit until, and then we get to try them.
Wow! Look at this! That is spectacular.
Does it look delicious?
Oh my goodness. I love as well the fact that it's individual.
Yeah, we're just having...
Not that I'm greedy.
No, but we're just having half each, aren't we, at the moment, because they're quite long.
I honestly, I couldn't eat a whole one.
No, I couldn't eat a whole one, not these days.
Way too much.
Yeah.
But half.
Perfect to share with someone, though.
That's what I love. So let's dig it. Now, what I love, my favourite thing,
Yes.
is gooey centres on meringues.
Well, I was a bit eager with this, and it's not quite at room temperature. So we should have actually left it a little bit longer.
My mouth is totally like full. It's like, oh my goodness. I mean, talk
It's
about.
very zingy, and the pastry's crisp.
Do you know what? I think there's something to be said for spelt pastry.
It does make very good pastry. It also makes good cakes as well. And bread. I mean, I don't know why we don't use it more as a nation.
This is awesome. Now, what I have to do is, when you made these last time, I gorged myself on 1.5 in a day.
You did.
And that was a bad idea.
I know, it's a bad idea.
So this is all I'm having today.
It's very delicious, though.
It's absolutely delicious.
It's zingy, and I mean, yeah, all right. It takes a bit of time to make, but I think it's worth it, isn't it? Would you say it's worth it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like this, it's always going to turn heads.
It's so zingy.
Do you know what I mean? It's sort of spectacular. You don't expect it. You don't expect it homemade. I mean, to be fair, you don't see them very often at all anymore, and I think that's because they're difficult.
Am I being a bit retro with this?
We're old-fashioned people.
Oh, I suppose we are.
Right.
And the thing with making it fresh as well is that the pastry's really crisp.
Yeah.
I think when you buy them in the shops, they're sat, and the pastry's never crisp. So there we go. That's the first of my classic bakes, the very delicious mini lemon meringue pies. So I hope you really enjoyed that, and I will see you for the next bake I'm not even going to give you a hint of what that might be. So have fun with your baking, and I will see you back soon.
The start of another wonderful series, Mrs. Jones. The start of the year is such an exciting time because that's when all our new series really sort of kick off. And I'm so excited. Of course I am. I get to eat all this stuff.
Get to eat it all. I had a
As you
little
just
bit.
saw. Gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
We forced Bryony to try a bit, which was quite hilarious. She's not a fan of lemon. She doesn't really like lemon-flavoured things. But I said, come on, I've made this. Try it. She's like, oh, all right. She ate it. Her face was an absolute picture.
It's just so full of flavour.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you like lemon, it's your kind of thing. It's delicious.
It's the type of sort of head turner, spectacular thing that you could pull out at a dinner party, but also an event, or just a lovely Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely.
After a walk.
Yeah, treat yourself.
And do you know what I actually did? I've been chopping out sections of the individual pies and just having that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because although they are individual pies, they're quite big.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
As you saw, we just ate half each.
Yeah, and that would be my absolute limit, half a pie.
Yeah.
They are quite big for
for
individual
individuals.
pies. Yeah, but great for sharing with a friend.
Yeah. And, just fun. And for me,
really fun. And
that's what it's all about. If you can mix fun with elegance and deliciousness, then you're off to a winner.
Just nice to spend a bit of time in the kitchen, because sometimes it's nice in a way when some things are a bit more involved and take a bit more time, and you kind of have that enforced time in the kitchen just baking away and creating this lovely thing. So I hope if you do make them, I hope you enjoy them.
This whole series is going to be full of bakes that are going to put a smile on your face. And the next one is coming on the 1st of March.
Yes.
And if it's the one that we've been talking about...
Something quite spring themed.
Is it the one we've been talking about?
Yes, I think so. I've got to
Hold me.
I've got to trial it. I have made this one before.
You have.
But
it's delicious.
It's a long while ago.
Hence the reason of my intense excitement.
I need to trial it again.
And next time, as I mentioned at the start of the show, the Yarny Book Club is back.
Yes.
So more books, more yarn, and more Reading Corner Cow,
Yes.
which is going to be marvellous.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Yes. Oh, the special edition.
Yes.
Look, before I even say that, this is our first ever sort of limited time patron event.
Yes.
Last year, Kay produced the wonderful My Favourite Blanket. And whilst the pattern was released in segments, there was never a proper pattern with pictures and everything.
Not a full one, no.
So Kay's been working super hard, and I even helped a little bit too, on creating an absolutely perfect pattern with links to all the videos from last year.
Yeah.
Lots of lovely pictures, special exclusive pattern, and it's available to any Bakery Bear patron.
Yes.
So patron of any level. Between the 19th, so that's today, so that's if you're watching when the show got released.
On the 19th.
Yes. So it's between the 19th and the 31st.
Yes.
After that, it's gone for good.
Yeah.
So you need to get it now if you want it.
So get it, download it.
Yes.
So you've got it permanently.
Yes.
And then you can knit one whenever you want.
Yes.
So I've got the blanket here just to give you a little quick flash of it, just in case you're new to the show and you don't know what it was. So this is the lovely blanket which I've been using loads actually. Just so nice. And all of these colours were inspired by flowers that ran all the way through the year, sort of flowering plants for each month. And then we dyed up colours and we knit this blanket together.
What was lovely too was you filmed and we put out just yesterday on the 18th a special design diary.
Yes.
That's Kay's monthly series where she talks about the sort of story behind the designs. And it was so cool to see you looking back in your design books to 2022 and the original sort of ideas that you had and the whole sort of story of how this design came about.
Yeah, because I had the idea for this. It must have been August, September time of 2022.
Yeah.
looking at where it was in my design diary.
So that's available
really long-term,
to watch right now.
Long-term project, yeah, and just such a lovely thing to knit. So yeah, the design diary will give you lots of ideas as well on different ways on how you can knit this. So you don't have to use yarn you've dyed yourself. You know, I'll just sort of talk through a little bit on how you can create one more sort of randomly, let's say, than quite so planned as this.
So super exciting.
Yeah.
First big event of the year, and it's actually leading us into, very nicely, our first patron-only show of the year is on the 28th of January at 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and we'll be talking all about our next huge patron event, which is Valenvent. Valenvent runs from the 1st to the 14th of February.
Yeah.
Everyone can join you as you create your Valen scarf.
The Valen scarf. So we sent out an email recently with details of the yarn that patrons will need if they want to join in to knit the Valen scarf. So yeah, we're knitting a scarf. And the yarn that I used some mini skeins that I purchased from Lay Family Yarns from Kelly. I used her Pick and Mix minis, and I chose a particular palette of yarns. It's 14 yarns that I chose because it's a 14-day knit along, because it runs up to Valentine's Day. So I chose the palette, put them all together, purchased them from Kelly, but then Kelly then said, oh, you know, what is it you're doing with these lovely minis? So we got chatting, and she basically put together some kits, so of my colour palette, along with a coordinating yarn that kind of matched the yarn that I used. And she put those up in her shop, and she discounted it for our patrons. So that has sort of ended now, that yarn opportunity. But lots of our patrons did purchase the kits. But then also I've seen lots of people who are just choosing their own sets.
You don't need that.
You absolutely don't need to buy the same yarn that I used. Absolutely not. You know, the idea is really that you go into your stash and you choose a bunch of yarns,
so you're cool,
that's in your palette,
fear not,
and that you want to work with. So it needn't cost you a penny at all. You can use stash yarns, and lots of people are doing that as well. Cool, but really exciting. I love the finished scarf. Is beautiful, I've got to say. It looks gorgeous, and there'll be 4 tutorials as well. Brilliant in the video.
England, a Castle Nation, as we mentioned at the start of the show, will launch officially on the 16th of February 2024. I know I said this at the start, but just in case anyone missed that, I know we originally thought it was going to start next episode, but we're just pushing it on one episode. So don't worry, it's on the way. 16th of February, that's when it'll start. Don't miss our radio show next week. We're talking about shared interests. It's going to be very fun. Yeah. And also, we've already put a radio show out this year. It was called Endings and Beginnings. We finished off our 2023, and we spoke about all the things we're looking forward to in 2024. Yes. But now that's it. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks for more.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Who's it sitting and knitting? It's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a shawl?